Hey friends, it's Lividian, not Livid Ian. Welcome to my fifth and maybe final installment of what to expect when you're collecting. To recap, these are my top 5 favorite publishers and my experience collecting from them. And of course, because they are my top 5, I am recommending these publishers, trying to give you an inside scoop into what you can expect in quality, shipping, pricing, and the overall sense of oneness you will feel with these books on your shelves. If you haven't caught them, I've done 4 other videos. One for SST, Suntop, Earthling, and Centipede. So if you're interested in any of those publishers, go check out those videos. It's a lot of fun. I try to be as extensive and as comprehensive as I can be. Of course, there may be things that are your experience that differ somewhat from mine, so feel free to sound off in the comments on anything that you feel I left on the table. That said, let's get into it. Lividian launched in 2019, the offshoot side hustle project of Brian James Freeman, who was the guy at Cemetery Dance. Cemetery Dance is another publisher, long established in the horror community, did a lot of Stephen King limited editions, and Brian James Freeman was the heart of that operation. Little did we know at the time, but he kept all those limited editions running and doing what he can to get them out the door. Well, he announced at some point in 2019, my memory is a little fuzzy, that he was pursuing his own publishing company called Letterpress Publications. And his first edition was going to be Stephen King's Revival. And everybody got jazzed about it. I don't think at the time Brian James Freeman said he was going to be leaving Cemetery Dance to pursue his publishing career full-time, but that is what ended up happening. So yes, he launched as Letterpress Publications, but that name caused just a bit of confusion among collectors because his books were not being printed letterpress. So people were wondering, why are you calling yourself Letterpress Publications when your books are printed offset? So he went back to the lab, came up with a name, Lividian. He wrote a really interesting blog post about it on his Patreon. I'll link to it in this video. You should definitely get over there and check it out. Hopefully future Jeff remembers to talk a little bit about his Patreon, because that is not necessarily key to collecting from Lividian, but it sure helps. But shortly after he became Lividian, he left Cemetery Dance. He was doing his, I think, side consulting for them, trying to keep those last few projects that he helped launch come to fruition. But more and more, less and less, I think that's a better way to say it, he's been involved with Cemetery Dance, and very, very busy guy over there at Lividian. Now, when it comes to price, just like Earthling and SST, you get a hell of a lot more for your money. And I think part of that is, again, when you keep the overhead real low, you can put more money into the product instead of in storage or employees and all those other things. You can really focus on creating a better product. When you charge for that product, you're not covering things like electricity for a warehouse storing all these books. And that's a lot of the reason why some of these publishers have to charge what they do. It's not just for the product, it's also for all the things that go into that product, like shipping and storing and paying for people to pack the books. I think he keeps it between him and his wife. And, I hope the business grows with their ambition and they can add staff and expand. But for now, you get a hell of a lot for your money. That said, you will pay more than you would for an SST or an Earthling book. His limited editions cost around $125, $150. And his lettered editions go for about $950, to give you a sense of the price range. When it comes to selection, he started with King, but he has vowed to do the entire Joe Hill library. I'll show you one of those books later. It's going to look incredible, all on the shelf, all done by Lividian in a uniform way. He's also done Catriona Ward, Bentley Little, a lot of Robert McCammon.
These authors are almost all exclusively horror/thriller, and apart from the Robert McCammon titles, these are not first editions.
Now, their editions come in 3 levels. They do trade editions, numbered editions, and lettered editions. I don't own any lettered editions, so I can't show them to you. The lettered editions have a print run of 52. They are the high end, and I think Lividian really does a great job with the lettered editions from what I've seen. You could go to the website and see photos, but they are true lettered editions, beautiful stuff. Not like that Gauntlet lettered edition business. The numbered editions come in slipcases. Most of them have die cuts. There are some that don't. And they all have art, loaded with art, big, beautiful art, and they're all signed. The print runs on the numbered editions can go anywhere from 750 to 1,750. Most of them are 750, but the Stephen King revival was 1,500, and the Joe Hill books are 1,750. That's a big print run, but they're all signed. They're all high quality stuff. And I guess that could give you hope that you'll be able to get one once they're sold out at the publisher. You'll be able to find them on the secondary because they are abundant. I don't know how many trade editions are in the print runs. I don't know if any publisher really specifies that. There are probably at least 5,000 to 10,000 copies. An example of a hardcover trade edition is the newly released 7 Shades of Evil by Robert McCammon. They don't come with a slipcase. They are not signed, but they have beautiful artwork that's different than the artwork on the cover of the lettered and the numbered. So that's a nice touch. If you're a completist and you want all the versions of a book published by Lividian, then you got to get all editions, because the artwork is different on each cover, from the paperback to the trade to the number. But their trade editions are beautiful, cloth covered, nicely done books.
The trade editions have awesome page design, but they don't have the interior artwork, the full page artwork that the limiteds do. But they can have some smaller spot illustrations like chapter headings.
And as of right now, all the trade editions are Robert McCammon titles. Now, buying from Lividian is fun. It's fun and it's different. And I say that because it's fun and different. It's fun because you don't have to pay until the book is ready to ship. And what that means is you can pre-order the book without paying for anything. So you're basically putting a chip down saying, yes, I promise to buy that book when it comes around. So you're holding your number, you're holding your place, and then you'll get an email from Lividian saying, hey, that book is ready to ship. Why not pay for it? Would be a good time right now. Why not? And then you pay for it, and then you get the book. Now, I don't know how that's worked out for Brian James Freeman. It's definitely a great thing for customers. Is it a great thing for him? I don't know. I don't know if anybody backs out when it comes time. I'm sure there are a few that committed to buying the book, and then when the book was ready to be released, they're like, oh, I kind of changed my mind. So now you have a commitment of X number of copies, and the commitment from the customers is lower than that expected threshold. But then he'll just sell them again. He'll put them back out there. Usually, Lividian sells out of whatever they publish. They do such a great job, and I think a lot of people like what they do. So there are some titles that are available. If you get over to the Lividian site, you'll be happy to get something. But I like that model, of course, because it favors the customer, where you say, I want one, and then you reserve your copy without extending the money. But in my opinion, if you don't have the money now, why do you think you'll have the money then? And if you're budgeting, you're collecting with a razor thin margin like that, like I don't have it now, but wait till I hit it big at the casino, and then I'll have it in 2 months. you could get yourself in a lot of trouble that way. But right now, I don't think Brian James Freeman has any collectors like Rocky. He's not going to show up at your house and bust your legs for not paying. You'll just be kind of looked at askew in the collecting community, like, oh, he doesn't live up to his promises. He doesn't buy what he promises to buy. You'll be a pariah. And if you want to buy from Lividian, the best thing you could do is follow Brian James Freeman on Patreon. He gives you sneak peeks at the books. If you are a member on some tiers, you can get the books. I support Brian James Freeman at the $10 a month level. So I get Chapbooks from Lividian and other goodies. I also get sneak peeks at what's coming up. I'll get advanced pre-order notices. So that is a big tip. You don't have to do it. Just subscribe to the newsletter. But I would recommend you support Brian James Freeman at some modest level, whatever you can afford. The chapbooks are great. I actually didn't plan on showing any chapbooks, but here we go. Here's a chapbook. This is You Are Released by Joe Hill. This is something you get if you support him on the Patreon level. You couldn't buy it any other way, I don't think. And this is the story that was in Flight or Fright, published by Cemetery Dance, but this gets its own unique little printing. It's a beautiful book, little story. I haven't read it yet. I did have a copy of Flight or Fright pre-ordered from Cemetery Dance, but I ended up canceling that because I just couldn't wait another goddamn minute. And that book still isn't out. The trade edition's out, and it's been in thrift stores because it's been out for so long that people started dumping it. And the artist edition never got published. It still hasn't been published. So at least this way, I get the Joe Hill story in a really beautiful format. So that's a benefit to supporting the Patreon. You can't get that just by buying it directly through Lividian. So I'm glad I thought and went off on that tangent a little bit for the chapbook. So that's good that I did that. And so with shipping is also really great because it follows fast on the heels of paying. He wants to, it's like Brian James Freeman is making good on all the bad things that Cemetery Dance did. Like he's learned all the things not to do and he's not doing them with Lividian. So the pre-order wait is not long. He doesn't announce a book for pre-order until it's like imminent. And then he doesn't take money for that book until the book is in his hands. So obviously after you pay, you will get it in short order from Lividian. When you do get the book in the mail, chances are it'll be in form-fitted foam. Isn't that great? That's great. That's cool. I like that. I've never had a damaged book from Lividian. He does it right. Makes it tight. So let's get into the books. I'm going to share with you 5 of my Lividian titles. 5.5, actually. I snuck another one in there. But here they go. First one is Last House on Needless Street. This is Catriona Ward, her debut novel that had everybody going goo goo gaga, loving this story. I've not read it yet. Yes, I am really bad. I'm an awful human. I have so many books I've got to read. This has been near the top of my TBR. But isn't it funny how other books can just cut that line all the time arbitrarily? This is the numbered edition, and it has the beautiful dust jacket, art by Ben Baldwin, and then the naked book has outline detail of the art that's on the dust jacket, so that's cool. It's cloth. It's very cloth. That's the best way I could describe the naked book. It's very cloth. It has a ribbon page marker, so you'll never get lost on your way to the last house on Needless Street. This one, the early books, came with a bookmark. I don't think he's doing that anymore, and he admitted that he's trying to keep the cost of the book low, so he's not adding little things like bookmarks into his deliveries, which is okay. You know what? I'd rather keep the price of the book as within reach as possible. Bookmarks are redundant when you have a ribbon page marker anyway. But it is loaded with art, beautiful page design, really nice stuff. The slipcase has that die cut on it that allows the dust jacket to peek through and show you what it's all about. This copy is signed by one of my absolute favorite authors, Sarah Pinborough. I believe she wrote the introduction. I'm sorry, the foreword. I don't know what the difference between a foreword and an introduction is. But Sarah Pinborough is amazing. I'd love to see a Lividian Sarah Pinborough book. And perhaps we will see one. I'd have to get that. That would be a must-buy. Next up is Heart-Shaped Box. Now, for Stephen King and Joe Hill, Lividian does not do the die-cut thing. And they also don't do dust jackets. Heart-Shaped Box has this bonded leather binding. Very cool, thick ass boards. Real nice, tight binding. Beautiful stuff. And it feels great to hold it. This is a very substantial book. Art by Francois Villancourt, who I might add does a lot of Lividian titles. That guy just doesn't sleep, I don't think. I don't think he ever goes to bed. He just constantly creates beautiful pieces of art. This book is also signed by one of my favorite authors, Josh Malerman. Josh Malerman and Joe Hill, Francois Villancourt, and someone named Matthew Claassen. And I'm not familiar with that individual, so I'll be very respectful. So Josh Malerman wrote the foreword, and Matthew Claassen, and someone named Matthias Claassen. I don't know who that individual is, but I guess he wrote a piece called Traveling the Night Road with Joe Hill on Heart-Shaped Box. All the Joe Hill books will look similar to this. In fact, after publishing this, Lividian did 20th Century Ghosts, and that is similar with spine hubs, just like this. And they'll look really great all on the shelf together. Very uniform, but elegant. Up next, we have a couple of trade editions for, that's what I said, I was sneaking one in there, for Robert McCammon titles. We have Mr. Slaughter. This is a paperback. I bought this book as a part of a package. It was bundled with 4 other paperbacks that are all in the Matthew Corbett series written by Robert McCammon. This one happened to be signed. It has a signature page, and that is really great for a trade paperback to have a signature page. It's sort of makes it elevated. There is no interior artwork, but this is the copy I'm going to read, and the other titles are uniform, but it is a substantial, really well done paperback. The limited edition of this title was previously published by Subterranean Press. I missed out on it, so I was thrilled when Lividian was doing the back catalog of the Matthew Corbett titles. And even though I previously showed you 7 Shades of Evil, this is King of Shadows by Robert McCammon. This is another trade edition, but you can see how it looks. It's got the foil stamping, very nicely done. Again, this was not originally signed, but I saw Robert McCammon promoting King of Shadows at the Alabama Booksmith for an event, and I got him to sign this one, so I was thrilled to get a signed trade edition of King of Shadows. Now I'm moving on to the deluxe numbered edition King of Shadows. This comes in the slipcase with the die cut windows so the King of Shadows can peek out at you and say howdy do. The dust jacket art is totally different. It's not just a different title treatment or some other way to make it look different. It is different artwork than on the trade edition. And the material that it is bound in is more substantial than the trade. And of course, this one is signed by Robert McCammon and numbered with its own signature sheet. And it has artwork throughout by the ferociously talented Vincent Chong. And of course, ribbon page marker you could see that if you collect Robert McCammon titles and you get the trade editions instead of the limited editions, you're still getting a great reading experience. But the numbered editions, the limited editions, are always super sweet. You gotta love it. And Brian James Freeman has committed to doing all the rest of the titles in the Matthew Corbett series, all the way up to the final one, which comes out next year, Leviathan. If you haven't read the Matthew Corbett series, you're missing out. It's a lot of fun. It's historical fiction, horror, and the birth of the detective as a profession. Matthew Corbett is like America's first detective, solving all kinds of crazy goings-ons in old-time New York. The last book I'll show you is the first book Lividian published as letterpress publications. That is Revival. This slipcase is a little more understated than the rest. It doesn't have any foil stamping on the side, just the spine. But the boards are just as beautiful. It has the spine hubs, which I think aren't real spine hubs. It's mostly for design and effect. But they also have all this embossing into the bonded leather here. And it is gorgeous. This one is not signed by Stephen King. That would have been one hell of a coup to come out the gate with a signed Stephen King edition. But it has several signatures. Vincent Chong, Francois Villancourt, Bev Vinson, and Josh Boone all signed the book. And it is, of course, loaded with art throughout. Fun fact is that Revival is one of my least favorite Stephen King books. I really did not like it. I loved the ending, but I don't think what led there was worthy of that ending. And then Brian James Freeman said he's going to publish this book, and I had to get it. And I'm like, God damn you for creating such a beautiful book that I'm going to have to read. I have to read this book again, and perhaps I'll like it more. I think my problem was I just didn't like the characters in the story. And it wasn't that they were just unlikable people. I just didn't care. I thought this would have been a much more powerful novella because it's really all about that ending, that super, super dark ending. Just didn't enjoy the trip to get there, which is sort of the reverse of a typical Stephen King experience. You read the book and you enjoy that journey, and then you get to the end and you're like, it was still worth it, but come on, you know? And so I guess Stephen King was sort of like, oh, you want a good ending? Okay, I'll give you a good ending. The rest of it's going to suck. Can't have it all. But beautiful artwork, beautifully done. So thrilled to have it. It is fun to see the publisher credited as Letterpress Publications. That's fun. That's a piece of history that we will all have, won't we? So that is it for my what to expect when you're collecting Lividian Publications. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you support Brian James Freeman. He's a stand-up guy. I think that's one thing I didn't say through this whole video. He is an incredibly great guy. Just great human. He's an author, and his stuff is really good as well. I've only read a couple of his short stories, but damn, they pack a punch. Doing Dirty Work, The Last Beautiful Day. I think those are two stories I read by him. I'm going to read Burying Little Annie. It's a gut punch, his stuff. So check out his work, both on the page and behind the book, and support him on Patreon. And I hope you find something you like from Lividian, because I know you'll be thrilled once you get it. Thank you for joining me this time. I hope to see you again next time. And in the meantime, stay frosty.